juggling emails, calls, social media, that report to tomorrow, 10 other things that just like really need to be done as soon as possible. And it all feels like it really just has to be done right now. Whether we think multitasking is helping us get more done, or we know better, but we just can't help ourselves, we all do it. But is it actually sabotaging our productivity without us even realizing it? Hey everyone, I'm Kate. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are diving deep into the world of multitasking and separating fact and fiction. We will explore the latest scientific research to uncover the truth. Is multitasking a myth, or can it be done effectively? We're going to challenge assumptions and discover the power of focused productivity. Are there secrets to getting more done in less time? Maybe yes, even with less stress along the way. So let's jump in. In part one, we're going to talk about scientific research on multitasking. You know the old expression that he can't walk and chew bubblegum at the same time? Well, that example is a joke because most of us can do either of those activities without thinking about it. But the truth in that expression is that we cannot think about two activities at the same time. Our brains simply aren't built for it. We never actually truly multitask. We switch rapidly between tasks with a hidden cost with every switch. Think about a time you sent a text message during the lecture. Chances are you missed something in the lecture and maybe even also something from the text message. This switch cost explains the productivity losses we see in controlled environments when looking at multitasking. First is increased errors. Our brains juggling multiple tasks are more prone to mistakes. Makes us lower quality of work. When you are rushing between two tasks, of course your quality suffers. And last is drained mental energy. That constant context switching is using our mental energy without giving us anything in return. Now, there is an exception to the rule. Just like you can walk and chew bubblegum without either activity suffering, you can multitask activities that require a low amount of cognitive effort, like listening to music or vacuuming the floor. The myth lies in believing we can multitask demanding activities that require our cognitive attention. The risk lies in underestimating the cognitive demand of an activity. So, for example, thinking that sending a text message is the equivalent of chewing bubblegum and doing it in the middle of another task, when it's not, and that's actually the textbook example of bad multitasking. Science backs this up. A Stanford University study found that multitasking on demanding tasks dropped productivity by 40% and increased error rates by 50%. So next time you're tempted to juggle activities, ask yourself, is the thing pulling at your attention actually a low cognitive activity? It almost never is. Okay, now for part two, we're going to talk about focused productivity, and I promise there's more to it than just don't multitask. Multitasking might be a myth, but its opposite, focused productivity, can really unlock a lot of productivity. You probably already know how productive you can be when you're really determined. But perhaps you've also noticed how hard this version of ourselves can be to turn on. Deep work, a term coined by Calvin Ford, is sustained attention on cognitively demanding tasks. Going into deep work allows you to enter a state of flow and really immerse yourself in the work, even losing track of time and distractions. You can also tap into peak performance, leveraging your full cognitive abilities, and produce higher quality work. When you really achieve focus, you are minimizing errors and even boost creative thinking. Uninterrupted thought is really where the new connections and the creative thoughts happen. So how do we unlock this focused superpower of deep work? Well, there are a few things we can do. Eliminate distractions. We can turn off notifications, make our space quiet, let others know not to interrupt us. You can also use the Pomodoro technique. This is where you set a timer and you are only allowed to work on the specified task until that timer goes off. I actually made 2 videos on Pomodoro technique. There's a little more to it than just the timer. I made one that is just like an all facts explainer of the official method, and I made a vlog where I try it out for a full day. I'll put a link to the explainer video up above. Next tip, you can batch similar tasks. Batching similar tasks minimizes context switching, both like in the mental multitasking, mental fatigue way, but it can also in a very practical way. Like for example, today I'm recording more than one video, and I have my hair clean, I have my lights on, and I'm doing this stuff once for 2 videos rather than doing it every time. I also like batching small tasks like replying to messages and only doing it a few times a day when it's convenient for me. Remember, mastering focused work is a journey, not a destination. Be patient with yourself, experiment different things. Over time, you'll find what works best for you. The goal is always just self-improvement. There's no standard of success here. It's just to be a better version of ourselves than we were a year ago. Don't be surprised if it's a little uncomfortable at first. Interruptions are also a form of stimulus, and the brain can actually get used to this. And another pitfall, the tasks that you used to let interrupt you might start piling up if you don't let them interrupt you anymore. If you don't find a new time in your day for those types of tasks. I've fallen into this one. As I've gotten better at focusing on my big projects, I've made a lot more progress, but I've also gotten worse at replying to emails. But that's something I can fix, and I'm in a better position to fix it, having made all this progress on my real work. Does email count as real work? I'm not really sure. But yeah, it's something I know I can fix. Okay, let's move on to part 3 of this video. We're gonna rapid fire through some multitasking myths. Myth number 1 is I'm good at multitasking. While you might feel that you are very good at multitasking, we already talked about the research which shows there is a cognitive cost with every time you switch focus. This leads to slower completion times and increased errors. So even though you're good at keeping yourself busy with multitasking, you're not being as effective as you really could be. Myth number 2 is multitasking saves you time. We already went over this. It might feel like you're getting 2 things done at once, but you're just switching back and forth, and it's taking you more time than if you were to focus on one task and then focus on the next. Again, it's fine to multitask low cognitive tasks, but don't fool yourself into thinking something is low cognitive just because it's quick. Myth number 3 is I need to multitask to avoid boredom and distraction. So the idea with this one is the increased mental stimulation of multitasking actually keeps you on task. The problem with this one is you're making your brain used to getting interrupted, and you're more likely to end up getting distracted by a time-wasting activity. Myth number 4 is I can just practice to be really good at multitasking. Now, practice does not make perfect in this case. While you might get good at multitasking compared to others, your brain is still occurring that same switchy cost as everyone else. So use those mental powers for focused work rather than multitasking. Myth number 5 is technology makes me a better multitasker. Maybe it does, but just like with the previous myth, you can be better at multitasking than other people, but you're still paying that same cost, and you're still not as productive as you could be with a different method. So those are 5 myths around productivity. So hopefully if you find yourself thinking one of them, you'll recognize it and not get caught in the trap. Let's move on to part 4 of the video, which is practical tools for you to use so you can practice focused work. All right, we've debunked some false narratives around multitasking and talked about the benefits of focused work. Now let's turn theory into practice with some tools to actually put this all in action. Number 1 is to identify your time vampires. What you're gonna do is you're gonna track your activity for 1 full day to identify any hidden multitasking habits or other time wasters. This is hard because we often do these things without realizing we're doing it, or it's just for a minute, or at least we think it's just for a minute. But try really hard for just 1 day to make a log like this. Self-awareness is crucial for making self-improvement. So if you could just do this for like 1 day, you'll have a lot of really great information for you to do some self-improvement. Number 2 is to create like a focused work ritual. Dedicate a specific time and place for your focused work where you'll have as few distractions as possible. Develop a pre-work routine to kind of signal your brain to go into focus mode. For example, doing some stretches before you sit down or setting a timer like the Pomodoro technique. Stick to your schedule and resist the urge to multitask during these dedicated times. This is your dedicated time for your most important work. Protect this time. Number 3 is to embrace technology wisely. You can use tools like app timers or website blockers, or even some noise canceling headphones to really minimize your distractions. You can also use apps to practice mindfulness and meditation and just kind of strengthen those mental muscles that help you focus. Number 4 is to celebrate wins. If you practice focused work, I guarantee you will make more progress on your important goals. It's shockingly easy to go a whole day or even a whole week without giving time to the things that matter most to you. So track your progress on these big goals and celebrate your progress on them. So there you have it. If you have made it this far in the video, you are pretty well versed in the current leading thoughts and research around multitasking. We've covered a lot: the research behind the time cost of switching tasks, the benefits of focused work, the myths around multitasking or the false narratives, and then finally some tips to set yourself up for success. I like to study things like this and pick and choose my favorite aspects to incorporate into my own personal productivity system. If you would like to learn more about the Pomodoro technique, the GTD getting things done method, the Franklin-Covey system, or like some others, I have made videos on all of those and more. I'll put them up on here. And you can watch those and again, pick and choose your favorite aspects to incorporate into your own system. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Hug, and I will see you over in those other videos. Ciao.